παρουσίαση του διδακτορικού του Άγγελου Αντωνόπουλου. Ονομάζεται Nanoscale RF CMOS Transceiver Design, έχετε τον τίτλο εδώ. Λοιπόν, κατ' εξαίρεση αυτή η παρουσίαση θα γίνει στα αγγλικά καθώς και η συζήτηση, επειδή οι καθηγητές, τουλάχιστον δύο από αυτούς, δεν είναι ελληνόφωνοι. So let me switch to English. Say again, welcome again all the members of the committee that have connected online. Professor Birvas from Patras, Professor Enns from EPFL, Professor Yannis Papananos will be from MTY. He will be connecting a little bit later on in the presentation. And we do have here Professor Angelos Bletsas from our school and Professor Vlasis from Patras. Okay, so we'll have the presentation by Angelos, following which there will be a discussion, scientific discussion, and after this discussion, after question answers, the committee will be deciding about the thesis. So this is it. We have Angelos' presentation now. Okay, hope it's fine. Angelos, up to you.
So good afternoon to all. Good morning, Professor Schroeder. I would like to thank you all for being here today. It's a pleasure to me. I think we can begin with the defense of my PhD thesis, which is entitled Nanoscale RF CMOS Transceiver Design. Here is the objective of the thesis. We start by stating the aggressive CMOS technology down to 28 nanometer, which is considered state of the art today. There's a strong need for radio frequency integrated circuits operating under low power, and therefore we need to define the region which is suitable for RFIC design, achieving high overall performance with minimum power consumption. Here's the motivation from some previous work. The first one is from Taris in Nanotera 2011, in which he presents a figure of merit which stands as a way to describe the behavior of the performance of a low noise amplifier in terms of gain, noise, power and operation frequency. And this figure of merit, interestingly, proves to be proportional to a simple form here, which is the normalized transconductance efficiency times the transit frequency. So, Taris wonders what the behavior of this figure of merit will be with technology scaling. Let me note here that the inversion region in the channel is indicated here by the different colors. With the green color we have the weak inversion region, with the light blue color we have the moderate inversion region, whereas the strong inversion region is denoted by the red color. So, what will happen when we go from 130 nanometer to 28 nanometer technology nodes? Will this figure of merit just increase while achieving its optimum point at the same operating point, or we will have a shift to lower inversion levels, which will in turn mean lower power? The second motivation is from Chen in his chapter Thermal Noise in Modern CMOS Technologies, according to which transistors might work in moderate or weak inversion region, and this is the trend for our days, and therefore channel noise models for transistors working in these regions are of utmost importance. Moreover, the scaling issues of noise characteristics should be investigated with the technology scaling. Therefore, we need figures of merit representing the RFIC behavior, which will be simple and easy to evaluate, and we also need to express thermal noise in terms of RFIC design. All these domains should be, of course, validated through the design of actual RFICs. By this figure in slide 4, we introduce a way to express the inversion level within a MOS transistor by introducing here the inversion coefficient, threshold values of 0.1 and 10 denote the transition region from weak to moderate inversion and moderate inversion to strong inversion respectively. And please keep in your mind that this inversion coefficient is nothing more than a normalization of the drain current over the specific current given by this formula here. So this is the outline of the work. We start with by going from the system to the block and present receiver blocks. Then we move down to the circuit level by presenting the requirements, the basic requirements for LNAs and the basic topologies. And then we move down to the device level so that we can exploit the direct connection from the device level to the circuit level. For this purpose, we have performed a tape out for an RF test chip in 90 nanometer CMOS process, which is considered a sweet spot due to its high performance to cost ratio. For this tape out, for this RF test chip, a large number of measurements have been done, and the embedding has been applied in order to remove all parasitics. Afterwards, we will present a small signal analysis from which figures of merit representing the LNA behavior, the LNA design, have been derived, and moreover, the thermal noise will be presented in terms of RF noise trends and noise parameters essential for low noise amplifier design. All these domains have been verified with the EKV3 model. Now, afterwards, we present the circuit implications of this device level analysis by showing how we can design a low noise amplifier at 5 GHz, which will be based on these figures of merit and which will use the EKV3 extracted model from this work, from the device level work. Finally, we will conclude and present the future work. Here is a basic block diagram of an entire transceiver. We focus on the receiver part, on this, on the upper part of the whole chain, and we further focus on the low noise amplifier circuit. So we have several receiver architectures spanning from heterodyne to direct conversion, and here is the way that noise and non-linearities of this receiver are expressed. We should notice here that the overall noise figure of the receiver is determined by the noise figure of the first stage, which is the LNA, whereas the gain of this stage of the LNA suppresses the noise figure contribution of the next stages. On the other hand, non-linearities come on the road, and this means that it's the last stages of this receiver that determine the overall non-linearity here. And please notice here that the gain of the low noise amplifier deteriorates the non-linearities of the next stages. Therefore, a low noise amplifier should provide minimum noise figure with a moderately high gain depending on the application. Here are some basic requirements for LNAs. I will present it briefly. The first one is the matching. We have 3 different types of matching: power matching, input matching, and noise matching here. In certain LNA topologies, there are feedback paths from the output to the input, which may lead to instability issues. Stabilities, stabilities are expressed through the state stability factor here, through the scattering parameters. Reverse isolation is also a matter of concern here. Reverse isolation improves stability and reduces the spatial cell load tone at the antenna, which goes back through the reverse path of the LNA, through the reverse gain of the LNA. Here we present the power gain, which is the same with the voltage gain when the input and output impedances are matched at the same value. We have several types of power gain. What is used in the spectral simulator is the transducer power gain, which is simply the S21 parameter, the forward gain. And here is the main consideration in low noise amplifiers, the noise, which is expressed through the noise factor. It's simply the signal to noise ratio at the input to the signal to noise ratio at the output. Ideally, a noiseless system has a noise factor equal to 1, or equivalently a noise figure equal to 0 dB. Now, power dissipation. Although the LNA consumes just a small fraction of the overall receiver, its power dissipation should be minimized And this power consumption has to be considered along with all the other figures of merit, namely the noise, power gain, linearity, etc. Here are some basic LNA topologies spanning from common gate to common source, cascode and transformer feedback. All of these experience certain advantages and drawbacks, and the circuit topology is dictated by the specific application the LNA has to serve. Here is the simple common gate topology, which faces specific drawback due to its high noise figure. You can see here that the noise figure is 3 dB, even for a value of gamma equal to 1. And keep in your mind that this gamma value is really important. It will be analyzed, and it stands for the excess noise factor. And we have recently shown that gamma values of 3 or even more have been reported, and therefore this gamma value equal to 1 is a really optimistic scenario. And of course, this noise figure equal to 3 dB is also a low value. Here is the common source LNA at the top right graph. It experiences a certain drawback due to the direct connection between the drain to the gate through the drain to gate capacitance. In order to alleviate this problem, we can use a cascode topology in which an extra stage is used. So we have a common source and common gate configuration together. By this way, the output is isolated to the input, but if we use here a resistive load, due to the large ohmic drop, the voltage gain is limited at 15 dB in a realistic scenario in which the saturation drain source voltage is equal to 0.25 volt and the supply voltage is equal to 1.2 volt. So now we're on slide 12 and we present the common source stage with resistive feedback. This RF, this resistance here, senses the output voltage and returns the current to the input, but due to its resistive nature, it contributes to the overall noise of the LNA. And therefore, one way to suppress this problem is by using an extra amplification stage here, with which the noisy parts of the signal are suppressed at the output, whereas only the desired signal is kept. Now, another topology, a single stage topology, is transformer feedback LNA, in which an extra path from the output to the input is added through the transformer here. You can see here the primary and secondary inductances of the transformer. Alternatively, the most widely used LNA topology is the cascode LNA with inductive generation, and the basic design considerations are shown here. You can see that we use two inductances at the source and the gate, with which we try to impose the input impedance to be equal to 50 ohm, which is the characteristic impedance of the antenna, and we also try to impose the imaginary part of this input impedance to be equal to 0. Now, we can see here that for a given operation frequency, omega 0, as technology shrinks to technology nodes with lower channel length devices, omega t here, which stands for the transit frequency, improves, and this in turn gives an improved for voltage gain and noise factor as well. So, after having presented all the basics for LNA design, we go to the device level analysis by presenting here the tape out of the RF test chip. You can see here all the fabricated dies in 90 nanometer CMOS. Each of these dies contains several structures shown here. These are RF NMOS structures, RF PMOS structures, and an LNA operating at 30 GHz, as well as structures for the de-embedding. Now, considering regarding the RF structures, their channel length has a range from 240 nanometer to 100 nanometer, and all these RF structures, which are of course the basic structures for implementing a low noise amplifier, are considered as a two-port network, with the gate to source standing as port 1 and the drain to source acting as the second port of this network. Here is the setup for the RF and noise measurements which were performed at TU Dresden at the lab of Professor Schroeter and Dr. Sakalas, who kindly provided it to us. Several measurement units are included in this RF and noise measurement setup. We can see here the semiconductor parameter analyzer, the probe station, due to the fact that all measurements have been performed on wafer, the VNA, the vector network analyzer, a noise figure meter here, which is simply a spectrum analyzer with a noise figure measurement personality, and we also have several switches which define whether we will perform RF or noise measurements. Now, after having measured our devices, we need to de-embed for the small signal and the noise performance of the intrinsic device under test. This is due to the fact that the interconnection lines and the paths of our structures insert some parasitics which should be removed since we only need to keep the performance of the actual device, of the transistor. So, for the small signal analysis, an improved three-step de-embedding has been performed, and for the noise de-embedding, we have used a cascade configuration which considers the interconnections, the pads, and the transistor as parts being preceding one the other. And we saw here the verification of the de-embedding process, which is precise up to the frequency of 50 GHz by presenting here the Y parameters of the de-embedding structures, and namely the through, the simple short, simple open, and the simple short, simple open. This also means that the equivalent circuits describing all the parasitics are accurate as well. And here we present the importance of de-embedding for a small signal and noise. First, for the small signal, we see here the de-embedding results and the measured results denoted here by the blue and the red symbols respectively, and we can notice here that FT and Fmax values experience a significant difference for the de-embedded and the measured results. This holds for both NMOS and PMOS devices. Now we're going to slide 19, and we present the importance of noise de-embedding by showing here all the measured noise parameters, and namely the minimum noise figure, the resistance, the noise resistance normalized over 50 ohm, and the magnitude and phase of optimum source reflection coefficient. And we can also notice here the great difference between the de-embedded and the measured results, which in practice means that de-embedding is of crucial importance for further modeling our devices. These are also the results for noise de-embedding for PMOS devices of channel length equal to 100 nanometer. Now, after we have removed all parasitics from our device, we further move to the high frequency modeling. We can say here that with frequency increase, design characteristics start to degrade. These design characteristics are the gain and the NF min of the device. And above a certain frequency, the extrinsic part of the MOS transistor starts to play a significant role. We can see here a simple equivalent circuit, including all the parasitics, and namely the gate source, gate drain, and gate bulk overlap capacitances, as well as the parasitic resistances. Now, if we need to extract figures of merit and device parameters, a simple way to do this is by presenting the Y parameters of the MOS transistor here, and this is the way that gate capacitance, gate drain overlap capacitance, and gate resistance can be extracted through the measured Y parameters of the device. Now we start with the figures of merit, some conventional figures of merit, FT, Fmax, and GM over ID. FT is the unity gain frequency, It's a frequency where the current gain of the common source amplifiers falls to unity, and it can be calculated through this simple formula. The maximum oscillation frequency of the device is calculated through the unilateral gain. It is the maximum available gain assuming that the device is neutralized, and this unilateral gain is calculated through this formula containing all the Y parameters. Now, since in advanced CMOS technologies it is really difficult to directly measure FT and Fmax values since they are too high, we can calculate them by just extrapolating the current gain and the unilateral gain in strong inversion and saturation where the slope is known to be equal to minus dB per decade. Here is also another figure of merit, the transconductance efficiency normalized through the thermal voltage, and this is maximum in weak inversion since this inversion coefficient appears here in the denominator. Now we move on to more interesting figures of merit. The most important among these is the GM over ID times FT, which was presented at the beginning in the motivation section. This is a figure of merit which we use to optimize low power circuits, and it has been investigated from Mangla, Halkiadaki and Dents, but mostly in terms of modeling. So we try to translate this in the circuit level. This figure of merit stands as a figure of merit for LNA design, and this comes from this low power LNA figure of merit, which contains the voltage gain, the frequency of operation in the denominator, and the noise factor and the power consumption in the denominator. We proved, it is proved that if we combine all these individual figures of merit, and namely GV, power consumption, and minimum noise factor, it proves that this overall figure of merit for low power LNA design is proportional to the this expression, to the ratio of GM over ID multiplied by the transit frequency. And this simply means that if we are able to predict the behavior of this figure of merit with channel length scaling and technology scaling and inversion level, we will probably find an easy way to calculate the optimum point for biasing an actual circuit, and specifically a low noise amplifier. Here is another figure of merit which was recently presented by Song et al. It is the same figure of merit by just excluding the frequency of operation from the denominator, and the useful thing here is that it is really easy to be evaluated through since only DC measurements are needed to express it. And up to this point it has never been studied with length scaling. Another important figure of merit recently introduced is the gain transconductance frequency product, which stands as a figure of merit for comparing different devices. So it's more important in terms of modeling and not in terms of RFIC design. And it is simply the product of GM over ID times FT times the intrinsic gain of the device. Here we will briefly present nonlinearity metrics. These are the 1 decompression point, the input third order intercept point expressed by its power and voltage, and we will show how these nonlinearity metrics behave with length scaling and inversion level. So we move on to the results from for the small signal analysis by presenting here all investigated figures of merit versus the measured data for the 90 nanometer case, and versus technology versus simulated data for technology nodes from 180 to 90 nanometer, 45 and 22 nanometer. All the results have been verified with the EKV3 model and have been validated with measurements from other groups, as is presented in these two graphs, where the FT and Fmax values versus channel length for our measurement and simulated data, indicated here by the green color and the red color, proved to be in line with measurements presented by other groups. So this is the way that NMOS device of channel length equal to 100 nanometer, you can see here that an FT of about 100 GHz and an Fmax of about 120 GHz are achieved. Here the FT and Fmax trends are shown for all investigated technology nodes, and namely for the 180 nanometer, for the 90 nanometer, 45 and 22 nanometer. And here it becomes clear that as technology scaling is moving to devices with channel lengths down to 22 nanometer, a shift to lower inversion levels regarding the maximum values of FT and Fmax is observed. This is also shown for the GM over ID times FT figure of merit. Please notice here how this figure of merit behaves with channel length scaling within the 90 nanometer fabricated process. And this means that we have investigated here several channel length NMOS devices versus the inversion level. And the trend says that the optimum value for GM over ID times FT is achieved to an inversion level within the moderate inversion region. Here is the moderate inversion region, within values of 0.1 and 10. And this optimum value is is shifting to lower inversion levels with channel length scaling. And this is important for a specific reason. This actually means that if this figure of merit represents the performance of a low noise amplifier, it's really easy to calculate the optimum bias point for this low noise amplifier by simply biasing the circuit at the specific inversion level, which is really close to the center of moderate inversion. Here we also present the trend for GM square over ID, which is found to be the same with GM over ID times FT, and this means that both figures of merit are translated in the same way in terms of frequency, in terms of RFIC design. You can also see here that the maximum value of GM square over ID is also achieved within the moderate inversion region. Now at the bottom graph we present GM over ID times FT for the shortest NMOS and PMOS available NMOS devices, and we saw that the lowest value for the PMOS device is due to the lower mobility of PMOS devices compared to the mobility of the NMOS devices. Here the trend for this figure of merit for GM over ID times FT, we're in slide 31 now, becomes even more clear as we presented versus different technology nodes. And please notice here that for the shortest, for the most advanced technology node of 22 nanometer, the optimum value is achieved at an inversion level close to 2, which is really close to the center of moderate inversion. The same holds for GM square over ID for all the investigated technology nodes. On the other hand, this trend is not so clear for the GTFP figure of merit due to the different behavior of intrinsic voltage gain with technology scaling. And this becomes even more clear in the bottom right graph, where maximum values of TFP and maximum values of GTFP are presented versus the effective voltage. Here the trend for the TFP is quite clear. It increases and shifts to lower inversion levels as technology scales down, whereas for the GTFP this trend is not so clear due to this GM over GDS decrease. Here we present how nonlinearities behave with channel length scaling within the 90 nanometer fabricated process and with inversion level as well. We present here all linearity metrics, and namely 1B compression point, PIP3 and VIP3 for the shortest and longest available NMOS devices of channel length equal to 100 nanometer and 240 nanometer. And we see that for all investigated metrics, the optimum point for nonlinearity is achieved to lower inversion levels with channel length scaling. The same happens for the simulated data here, where we present the trend for 3 different technology nodes of 180, 45 and 22 nanometer, and the same trend is observed here. The optimum value for the 22 nanometer case in terms of 1 dB compression point and the PIP3 is achieved close to an IC value equal to 1. So, the conclusions on small signal analysis. We have presented trends in figures of merit which were investigated versus bias, versus channel length within the same technology node, and versus different technology nodes. Individual as well as more advanced figures of merit show the same shift to lower inversion levels with length scaling, and the optimum LNA performance was studied via these simple figures of merit, and namely GM over ID times FT and GM square over ID. Both experience the same behavior and their optimum values achieved in moderate inversion. So, optimum RF performance has been shown to be shifted toward around threshold operation as planar bulk CMOS is scaling down to 22 nanometer. Now, we stay at the device level analysis and we move to a different domain. We move to the noise of the thermal noise of most devices. Please remember from the introduction of this presentation that noise is of utmost importance for LNAs, and therefore we present here the thermal noise. Noise is actually represented by 2 different ways. It can be represented by the Norton equivalent circuit in units of volt square per hertz, and in the Thevenin equivalent in ampere square per hertz. We have 3 different types of noise in most transistors: the flicker noise, the thermal noise, and the induced gate noise. Both thermal noise and induced gate noise are investigated within this thesis. Now, thermal noise is a really hot research topic since the last 30 years, and a lot of groups have studied the thermal noise in most devices, and namely Birbas and Triantis, Enzen Royce, Retter and Sagalas, Smith and Solten, Dean and Sen. We have several compact models describing noise as a function of geometry, bias and scaling, but a lot of controversies can be found in literature. Moreover, the excess noise for the excess noise in short devices, we have also seen different results in literature, and a misunderstanding of the noise parameters which are essential for LNA design can also be found in the work that has been presented in works that have been presented till now. Now, there's a necessity to translate the noise behavior of a MOS device to the circuit level, and therefore we understand from these points that a lot of issues remain unclear and need to be clarified, and this is what we're trying to do. Here on slide 37, we will briefly present the EKB3 model approach for thermal noise. We can see here within the channel of a MOS transistor a local noisy source, here denoted by delta X. This noise source can be modeled by a noisy current source in parallel with a fainted noise resistance. And afterwards, the transistor can be split in 2 transistors having conductances equal to G1 and G2. The drain fluctuation now, due to the local noise source, due to this noise source only, can be calculated by this formula by simply multiplying the channel conductance with this noise resistance and the noisy source, the noisy current source. And if we need to calculate the power spectral density of all noise sources across the channel, we have to integrate across the channel, and this is from 0 to L, for a distance across the channel from 0 to L, from source to drain. Now, in contrary to the long channel approximation, for thermal noise where the constant, where the current mobility is assumed to be constant. As we move down to shorter devices, short channel effects start to play an increasing, an important role in determining the thermal noise of most devices. These short channel effects are the velocity saturation and carrier heating. The EKB3 model accounts for both through a critical field parameter, lambda C, denoted here. As a rule of thumb, the higher the lambda C, the stronger the short channel effects are. Another short channel effect which impacts on the thermal noise of the MOS device is the channel length modulation, which appears in strong inversion and as the drain source voltage increases. At this point, the channel pinches off, and therefore it needs to be split into two regions here. The first one is the non-saturated region, L effective, and the second one is the saturated region, denoted here by, indicated here by delta L. Now, since the carriers in the latter region, in the velocity saturation region, have reached their maximum velocity, noise voltage fluctuations due to this velocity saturation region do not propagate to the drain. And this is the reason that only the active region contributes to the channel thermal noise. The incorporation now of short channel effects in the power spectral density of drain noise current has been done by Roy and Enns in 2005 in the context of the EKB3 model. And we saw here how the thermal noise conductance, which plays a critical role in determining the thermal noise of a MOS device, is affected by the effective channel length here and the effective drain voltage, which in turn depend on the saturation conditions. Here we present thermal noise parameters which are essential for RFIC design. The first one is the thermal noise parameter, indicated here by delta. It is simply the ratio of the noise conductance versus the drain source output conductance, which is calculated at zero drain voltage. This actually means that GND and GDSO are probably calculated at different operating points, and therefore this thermal noise parameter is less relevant for circuit design, and it is mostly used for modeling. On the other hand, we present here the thermal noise excess factor, this gamma factor that we also saw at the beginning of this presentation, which is calculated as the ratio of the noise conductance, of the thermal noise conductance, versus the gate transconductance. And since these two quantities are calculated at the same operating point, this thermal noise excess factor is really important in terms of circuit design, and it is directly used in the noise calculation of a cascode LNA. Please notice here that the minimum noise figure of a cascode LNA is determined by this excess noise factor, which appears here and here. As a rule of thumb, the smaller gamma, the better the noise performance of our circuit will be. Now, this excess noise factor, its importance has been underestimated by the scientific community. Up to this point, it has never been validated with measurements, and wrongly, the thermal noise parameter is used instead of the excess noise factor. This is the last slide regarding basic theory. Here's the way that we can go from a noisy to port to a noiseless to port by simply introducing two partially correlated noise sources at the input of our two-port network. And here are the noise parameters that are needed in order to express the overall noise factor of a two-port network. These noise parameters are the minimum noise figure, Fmin, the noise resistance, RL, and the Rn, and the optimum source reflection coefficient, indicated here by gamma out, which is connected to this optimum admittance by this formula. We can see here that noise matching occurs when this source admittance becomes equal to the optimum admittance of the device. And at this point, the overall noise factor of our noisy to port is equal to the minimum noise factor of the device. Now we move on to the results of the thermal noise section by presenting here the high frequency noise parameters versus frequency for two channel length NMOS devices of 100 nanometer and 240 nanometer. Here the EKV3 model is indicated by the lines, whereas the measurements are indicated by the symbols. We saw here that all measured noise parameters are adequately modeled from 8 up to 20 GHz for all measured noise parameters and for all investigated different devices. The same is shown here for the shortest and longest available PMOS devices. All noise parameters, NFmin here, normalized noise resistance, and optimum source reflection coefficient in terms of real, of its real and imaginary parts, are presented up to 20 GHz, and for PMOS devices of channel length equal to 100 and 240 nanometer. These are mostly interesting things in terms of modeling. So we will present here circuit implications of high frequency noise parameters by presenting these parameters versus bias, and more specifically versus the inversion coefficient. The first graph at the top left graph, we saw the minimum noise figure and the associated power gain of an NMOS device equal to 100 nanometer. The associated power gain is simply the power gain of the device when the input is matched for noise and the output is matched for minimum reflection. At the right and top graph, we can see how the noise resistance and the magnitude of the optimum source reflection coefficient behave with channel length scaling for two different channel length NMOS devices of 100 nanometer and 240 nanometer, and versus inversion coefficient. And the same trend is observed here as for the other figures of merit, and this means that the optimum values for both noise characteristics are achieved at lower inversion levels as channel length decreases. This becomes more evident in terms of the minimum noise figure here. Minimum noise figure is of course more important in terms of circuit design. We present here the minimum noise figure for three different channel length NMOS devices, namely 100 nanometer, 180 and 240 nanometer, and we demonstrate here the shift to lower minimum NFmin values as channel length decreases to shorter devices. This graph is translated directly to this one, to the bottom right graph, where the minimum values of the NFmin for all investigated channel length NMOS devices are demonstrated versus inversion coefficient. And really interestingly, the minimum NFmin value for the shortest available NMOS device is achieved at an inversion level really close to the transition point from strong inversion to moderate inversion. And this trend clearly shows that in most advanced technologies, this trend will become even more clear, and minimum values for NFmin will appear at even lower inversion levels, which of course translates to lower power consumption for our device. Here we present for NMOS and PMOS devices the modeling of powers of the PSD of drain noise current. At the first graph, at the left graph, you can see the power spectral density of drain noise current versus frequency for all investigated NMOS devices. Then we have here the PMOS device at the second graph, and we see that we have a fairly good match for the EKV3 model for all measurements and for all different channel length devices. This also is the case for the modeling of the power spectral density versus bias here, shown for several NMOS and PMOS devices. Here the power spectral density of drain noise current is presented versus the gate source voltage in a way that the short channel effects can become clear on how they affect the thermal noise of the device. Here we saw with the dotted line the EKV3 model without accounting for the short channel effects, whereas the solid line represents the EKV3 model with having taken all the short channel effects into account. And we can see here that a difference of about 20% is evident for a channel length NMOS device of 100 nanometer. These short channel effects now that have been deactivated here from the noise model only, while the DC model has remained unaffected, are the velocity saturation, the carrier heating, and the channel length modulation that were represented earlier. Here is the trend for the power spectral density of drain noise current versus channel length for different gate source voltages. It is clear from this graph that power spectral density of drain noise current increases with the inverse of channel length. Now we move to design parameters essential for LNA design. We demonstrate here the thermal noise excess factor that was presented earlier for channel length NMOS devices from 100 nanometer to 240 nanometer. These are firstly presented versus the normalized pinch of voltage, whereas we present this excess noise factor afterwards versus the inversion coefficient. And here we can notice some important things. One of these is that values for this excess noise factor greater than 3 have been measured, and this is really important since this will give a much higher value of noise figure. The second important thing here is that the excess noise factor is increased as channel length decreases, and the third important thing here is that the impact of short channel effects is really critical here in correctly modeling the excess noise factor. We can see here with the dotted line again the model without accounting for the short channel effects, and with the solid line the model with the short channel effects being included in the simulations. Here we also present the thermal noise excess factor versus channel length for different gate source voltages, and the thermal noise parameter as well versus channel length for the given technology node of 90 nanometer. The values for this thermal noise parameter much greater than its long channel approximation, which is equal to 2/3, have been measured. An important thing here is that the thermal noise parameter increases as channel length is decreased from 240 to 100 nanometer, and measurements close to ours have been also reported for the 180 nanometer channel length NMOS device. Noise parameter versus channel length for from several publications found in literature, and here what is interesting is that contrary to some controversial results for channel length devices for channel length devices longer than 200 nanometer, as we move down to more advanced technologies, the same trend that was presented here is also presented here, and that is the thermal noise parameter increases as channel length decreases. Here our measurements are indicated with the black color and are totally in line with other published work. Here are some results on the induced gate noise for two NMOS devices. Induced gate noise is also important in terms of RFIC design, since it is directly found on the noise figure formula of low noise amplifier and it's represented there by an induced gate noise parameter. So we really need to correctly model the behavior of induced gate noise versus all investigated domains, and this is versus frequency versus gate source voltage for different channel length devices. We saw here that the power spectral density of drain noise current, of induced gate current, increases with the square of frequency, and it decreases with channel length as it is directly dependent on the gate source capacitance of the device. On the other hand, SIG slightly depends on the gate source voltage while the device operates in saturation, as we saw here for a VDS value equal to 1.2 volt. Finally, we present here the imaginary part of the correlation factor between the drain noise current and the induced gate noise, and a value of about 0.4 for its imaginary part is reported for the model, and values close to this one have been measured as well, up to the frequency of 20 GHz. So, concluding from this chapter, we have shown a detailed investigation of RF noise in MOSFETs in the context of circuit design by investigating thermal noise versus frequency versus channel length within the 90 nanometer fabricated process and versus bias. We have shown thermal noise excess factor measurements for the first time up to the best of our knowledge, and we have shown how the short channel effects impact on thermal noise and on thermal noise excess factor. Moreover, it has been shown that the optimum noise performance is achieved at the vicinity of strong inversion to moderate inversion, and it is expected to move to even lower inversion levels at more advanced technologies. And this is indicated here in the contribution of this chapter. Now, after having investigated all the device level, we go to the circuit level in order to present all the circuit implications of this device level analysis. We start first by presenting a 30 GHz LNA design. This LNA has been implemented and fabricated by the model of the PDK of the process design kit rather than the EKV3 model. And this has been found in the test chip that we saw earlier. For this LNA, we have used the simultaneous noise and input matching technique. These are the steps that have been followed. We use first the minimum channel length to achieve the highest FT. Then we calculate the gate source capacitance and the optimum width through this formula. We can see here all the mentioned noise parameters, and namely the thermal noise parameter here and the excess noise factor here, as well as the correlation factor here. Then we calculate the source inductance for a given power constraint. Afterwards, the gate inductance is calculated so that the imaginary part of the input impedance is supposed to be equal to 0. And afterwards, the optimum bias voltage is found by plotting the transit frequency versus the overdrive frequency. It proves that after a specific overdrive voltage, the FT does not further increase, and therefore a gate source voltage of about 65 volt has been chosen for this implementation. Now the output inductance resonates with the output capacitance at the frequency of operation, which is this 30 GHz frequency range. Here is the layout of the structure. We use the uppermost metal for the interconnection lines. The uppermost metal has the lowest resistivity. We use the same orientation for all components. The interaction between transmission lines and the inductors should be avoided, and therefore a minimum distance should be kept between them. The width of the interconnection lines is determined by the current they have to drive, and the path capacitance should be kept as low as possible. Here is the overall area of this implementation. And here we present the simulated results in terms of pre and post layout simulations. Here are the input and output matching of the LNA which is about minus 15 dB at 30 GHz, and here is the forward gain of our device, which is about 7 dB at the same operating frequency. The noise figure of the LNA is limited to values lower than 4 dB at 30 GHz, and the LNA is unconditionally stable as the correlation coefficients here show. The nonlinearities of the structure of the 30 GHz LNA expressed by the 1 dB compression point and the input third order intercept point. Right here is the point where the output at the fundamental frequency crosses the intermodulation results, have been found to be equal to minus 15 dBm and 4 dBm respectively.
This is output IP3, right?
No, this is the input IP3,
Okay.
this is the output IP3.
Okay.
So the input IP3 is equal to 4 dBm, approximately. Now, in order to compare our implementation with other designs of the same frequency band, we use this figure of merit. We also saw it earlier, but it just incorporates here the nonlinearities of the design. What we need to do here is to maximize the numerator and minimize the denominator. We see here that from this work we get a fairly high figure of merit compared to other implementations. Here the higher figure of merit is due to the fact that only pre-layout simulations are shown here, and moreover the patch capacitance have not been included in the results that are shown here. Now we had unfortunately a problem with the measurements of this LNA. However, although we were able to measure the simulated bias, the simulated drain current, which was really close to the value of 7 milliamps, and even though we could measure a fairly good input matching, we had a problem at the output, and therefore we did not manage to measure the simulated voltage, the simulated gain of this value of these 6 dBs that have been that were derived from the post-layout results. This might be due to some problem in the passives, since the simulated current was there. And therefore we think that the passives and specifically the inductances of this LNA implementation should be investigated again.
Angele, the units of input IP3 there?
The units of input IP3 are in dBm,
Okay.
and are translated to milliwatt here, so that we have a unitless figure of merit. Yeah, here it should be dBm instead of dBs.
And why do you have such a big difference between the next column? You have 4.9 dBm, and the other guy has minus 7.5?
Yeah.
Perhaps we could discuss it later.
Yeah, we can discuss it later. It's probably due to, on the first hand, it's probably due to the different bias point for these different implementations. We saw earlier how the bias point impacts on the nonlinearities of the device, and therefore in the nonlinearities of the LNA. But this is not so simple, since we have studied the nonlinearities of the input transistor of the common gate LNA. But in determining the overall nonlinearity, the common gate transistor of the cascode LNA also plays a significant role. So,
and the gains between the two LNAs are the same?
No, the forward gain of our device is equal to 5.9, whereas this LNA has a
that's another explanation.
The forward gain, yes, of 20 dBs.
Okay.
But on the other hand, due to this much lower power consumption, we get a higher figure of merit. It depends on the specifications that one has to meet.
Angele, do you have any information about the voltage supply of this implementation?
For this implementation from Abadi?
No, for all of this.
For all of this.
It's you use
They're mainly biased in strong inversion.
okay.
All of these structures.
Okay.
Whereas in our implementation we are in strong inversion again, but at a much lower value, close to the vicinity of strong inversion to moderate inversion. This VGS value that we saw earlier, which is 0.65 volt.
The VDD.
The VDD.
Just
okay.
the VDD.
The VDD for all this implementation is about 1.2 volts.
1.2.
1.2, yes. This is the maximum allowable voltage for the specific technology nodes here. Let's say for the 90 nanometer technology node, the VDD.
So you got all these results from those papers? Or?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And I translated them to this overall figure of merit. Now, as I told you earlier, this 30 GHz LNA had been designed at an early stage, and therefore all these information that has been derived from the device level has not been taken into account in implementing this LNA. Now, since we did all this work on the device level, we went back to the circuit level and we implemented the 5 GHz WiMAX LNA. This LNA has been based on the system level analysis, on the budget analysis of a WiMAX receiver. This has been taken from my master thesis. And according to the system level analysis of this receiver, the LNA should have a noise figure equal to 3 dB, whereas its gain should be about 18 dB. But this value could be relaxed if the gain of the next stages and probably the gain of the voltage gain amplifier could be adjusted in some way. The operation for this LNA is at 5.3 GHz and it is based on the Cascode topology again. And the important thing here is that this LNA has been the result of the extracted EKV3 model from all the device level analysis, rather than the commercial one, which was used for the 30 GHz case. This LNA has been biased in the moderate inversion region by using this simple figure of merit that was presented in the device device level, and this by biasing the LNA in the moderate inversion region, we got a drain current of about 1.47 milliamps, which corresponds to an inversion coefficient value close to the center of moderate inversion. This is a value of about 3. So, for this LNA, we got these simulated results regarding its S parameters. We see here that a forward gain of about 17 dB has been reported, a noise figure much lower than the specification from the system level analysis of the receiver has been achieved. This value is a bit higher than 2 dB at 5.3 GHz, and this noise figure, this LNA has a fairly good noise matching, since its overall noise figure is about the same with the minimum noise figure for the investigated here frequency. The LNA is unconditionally stable over the entire bandwidth, and its 1 dB compression point is about minus 80 dBm. Now, we also compared the overall performance of this LNA by the same figure of merit here, and we got this interesting result. We present here this overall figure of merit for several references, and we have achieved a fairly high overall performance for our device by simply biasing this device according to the GM over ID times FT trend with channel length scaling and inversion level. And this fairly high overall performance has been achieved while the power consumption of the structure has been kept at the lowest possible point, which is given here by this value 1.67 milliwatts.
One question also, do you happen to know for the other implementations whether these are also moderate or rather very strong inversion designs?
Yeah, most of them are in strong inversion, and this can be shown by the power consumption that they have.
So the main advantage of this design is the low power consumption.
Exactly. The main advantage of this design is the low power consumption, along with an overall high figure of merit. This means that we have managed to keep the denominator as high as possible, whereas the denominator has been kept at the minimum level. And this has been achieved by simply biasing our structure at the optimum bias point according to the figures of merit that were shown previously. So, these are the conclusions on the circuit level on the LNA design. We have shown how we can go from the device to the circuit via simple figures of merit, via this simple expression here. We have achieved a fairly high overall performance with a low power consumption, and it proves that the moderate inversion is ideal for LNA design. Here are the final conclusions for this work. We have provided basic guidelines for low power RF CMOS transceiver design by exploiting the direct connection between the device and the circuit performance. This has been accomplished by the design, the layout, the fabrication, and the fabrication of an RF test chip with a 30 GHz LNA implemented. Afterwards, a figure of merit representative for LNA design were investigated and presented versus technology nodes, versus channel length within the same technology node, and versus bias, and the great potential of CMOS downscaling in realizing high performance, low power, radio frequency integrated circuits has been revealed. We have validated all these figures of merit by the design of a WiMAX LNA operating at 5.3 GHz. This LNA operates in moderate inversion region and uses the simple way in order to proper bias it. And of course it achieves high overall performance with minimum power consumption. Moreover, RF noise characteristics were presented versus channel length scaling and inversion coefficient, and the excess noise factor was highlighted, and its importance was shown in terms of RFIC design. Moreover, this excess noise factor was verified with measurements for the first time, and the impact of short channel effects on it was shown. All the small signal and the noise results were validated with the EKV3 model. Now, part of this work appears in these journal publications and these conference publications, and this work has been funded by the Heraclitus 2 program. That was it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be glad to answer to your questions. Thank you.